Today we will talk about the molecules of life. So we will talk about these four macromolecules: lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, and carbohydrates. And today we're going to just give you an introduction, and in the following class we will focus on each one of these. And why they are called macromolecules? Because you will see that you will find thousands of covalent bonds joining many atoms. So all living things are made up of four classes of large biomolecules, and these macromolecules are composed of a thousand of covalently connected atoms. And we will talk about how understanding the structure will help you to understand the function because they are inseparable. So in this slide, I will show you that macromolecules are polymers that are built from monomers. So you have a building block, and that building block you attach to another building block. It's like a Lego game. When you have many of these monomers, they will form a polymer, and they will create very complex structures. So this is an example. You have here maybe about monosaccharides and polysaccharides. A monosaccharide is this building block, and a polysaccharide is the same building block repeated multiple times. So a polymer is a long molecule, like this case, consisting of many similar building blocks, while a monomer are the small building blocks, molecules that form the polymer. And there are four classes of live organic molecules: carbohydrate, lipids, protein, and nucleic acids. And in each case, I will show you the monomer and the polymer. In this case, for example, in the carbohydrate, here this is a type of carbohydrate, the monosaccharide and the polysaccharide. And in the following classes, we will talk about each one of these. Now we're going to talk about the synthesis of polymers and how polymers are synthesized by the dehydration reaction. So here you have short polymer, and here you have a monomer. Here you have a hydrogen, and here you have a hydroxyl group. So what you're going to synthesize a polymer, you're going to combine these two molecules, and you're going to produce a molecule of water. So the dehydration removes a water molecule, forming a new bond, and this will create a longer polymer. So you can start with a 3 polymer with a hydrogen in the corner, and then you have a monomer that have an OH, and they bond together, forming a polymer but releasing a molecule of water. So a dehydration reaction occurs when two monomers bond together through the loss of a molecule of water, as you saw here. And this is exactly as I said before. If you have played with a Lego, it's the same, a similar principle. You have building blocks that in the endings, they are able to attach to each other, and you start building more complex things. So in the case of the polymers and the monomers, you have on one side the OH, the hydroxyl group, and in the other side you will have the hydroxyl group. So every time that you join them together, they are going to form a molecule of water. You produce this dehydration reaction, and you release a molecule of water. And again, at the end, when you join these two Legos, at the end, in the corner, you will end up again with a hydroxyl group, hydrogen in the other corner, like in the beginning. In all of them, you have OH group, hydrogen, OH group, and hydrogen. And even when you get them together, you continue with the same principle. So you can keep attaching and attaching to this polymer. And This is somebody that have worked really hard to make this beautiful ship, and the idea is that although the parts seems to be very similar, you can create very complex structures, and the same thing happen with life. From using this very simple, the simple dehydration reaction, life has created a high diversity of proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, etc. Now let's go in the opposite direction, how you break down the polymers, how you break it, and it's through the opposite reaction that is called hydrolysis. So again, here you have a polymer. Again, you have in the corner a hydroxyl, and here you have a hydrogen, and you're going to remove water. So here you take water from the environment, and as a result, you will end up with a polymer that instead of having 4 molecules, here you have 1, 2, and 3. And as you break this molecule of water, you break it here, and the hydrogen will go into 1 into this polymer, while the monomer will take the OH. Polymers are disassembled to monomers by hydrolysis, a reaction that essentially reverses the dehydration reaction. Now I'm going to talk again about the diversity of polymers. So if you remember the example of the Lego, I'm going to give you more example like that to try to explain that each cell has thousands of different macromolecules. However, those macromolecules, this huge diversity of polymers, are built in a small set of monomers. And how they do it? By recombining a small set of building blocks. So in the same way that you have a small alphabet, but you can produce thousands of textbooks, journals, and magazines that they could be very different, like in these two cases. You don't need to create thousands of letters in the alphabet. You just have to use few of them and combine it in different ways. And the same thing is done in life. So macromolecules not only vary among the organisms, they even vary more within a species, and they even vary more between a species. So you know that we have, in all the cells of our body, we have the same genome. However, the macromolecules in your brain are different from the ones that are in your eye and the ones that are in your toes. Why? Because they are expressing in a different way genes. And when you go and ask the same question within a species, so for example, when we compare the genes expressed in all the fruit flies, you see that there is even more variation. And when you compare between a species, you find even more and more variation. And how they do it, in the same way that they did it here, they do it in living organisms. So in this schematic that is not in your textbook, I just wanted to show you that, for example, you have four monomers, and you just mix it in different ways, and you can have this combinatorial property that you start getting more and more. And the more monomers that you add, the more the combinatorial property will allow them to grow exponentially. In summary, there are different macromolecules, and we're going to study 4: lipids, proteins, nucleic acid, and carbohydrate. These are large molecules that have thousands of covalent bonds that join a different variety of atoms, and they are synthesized using a dehydration reaction, and they break down using the opposite reaction, that is a hydrolysis, and they use combinatorial properties to create a huge variation of polymers. So remember 4 points that you have to remember.